Well, good morning, and we're glad you're here. Let me introduce myself. My name is Mark Shep, and together with my wife Becky, we've been doing these workshops for a good long time. I'll introduce myself a little more in detail um, when I have the slides up, but glad you're here. Some housekeeping things. There's a chat button somewhere on your screen, depending on which platform you're on, but that's where you can put questions and comments. Feel free to do that. We encourage that. Um, we're here in the midst of COVID-19 and social distancing, so we're home. We assume you're home. And that's one of the reasons we're doing this, is to try to get this information to an audience that when I was doing workshops with Wheatridge a number of years ago, didn't see much of when I was parents. Certainly watch this with your kids if you have a chance to do that. It's certainly helpful to them and just as important. We think this is life-changing information. You'll see that in some of the slides and videos that we show, but we've had a lot of feedback over the years that we've done this as well, that it's made a huge difference to folks. Very simple things. Been around a long time, the information, but not many people know it, so that's one of the reasons we're trying to get the word out. Okay, I'm going to get the screens going, get these slides going. I want to make sure we get in and out less than 45 minutes. So we're going to go to the keynote. I'll share that. Excuse my coughing here and throat clearing. I got allergies with living with pets and whatnot. Okay, get this started. You should be seeing the single slide, exercise in the brain. I should be up in a corner somewhere. You can move that around if that gets in the way of anything. So let's get through this. Exercise in the brain is the topic of this morning. We got two more. We have diet in the brain and place, rest, sleep in the brain on Friday. So we encourage you to check them all out. Again, my name is Mark Shep. I worked for about 6 years with Wheatridge Ministries, a foundation out of Chicago, and was health educator, kind of PR guy. Had put this workshop together a good long time before that, but it was very useful in the Wheatridge context. This picture is back in the day when we were a family of jugglers, of all things. We called ourselves FITZ, F-I-T-Z, FITZ Family Ministries. Still got some things up on YouTube. But this is how I got interested in the brain. I came across an article back in about 1992 that connected success with reading with success with juggling. And of all things, that those two went together. And if you found a struggling reader and taught that kid how to juggle, their reading skills went significantly and measurably up. So that sort of suckered me into paying attention to brain research. And I watched it very closely for years, and I still do. And found some very, very interesting things, and that's the beginning of this for me. I always like to start with a little bit of a joke. This was an actual test question on an elementary level biology class. 6 animals that live specifically in the Arctic. I'm not sure what you're thinking of. You can maybe think of 6, but this was an actual answer that one of the students gave. Yeah, 2 polar bears and 4, count them, 4 seals. So either they're math challenged, they're lazy, or they're just messing with the teacher that day, because given the question, that could have been the answer. So we're talking about the brain and talking about test questions. We're going to talk about the brain and 3 things that make a huge difference in focus and brain function. And the things that you wouldn't necessarily associate with that: exercise, diet, and play. Today, of course, is exercise. So here's a picture of the brain, and look at how compartmentalized it is. I don't know how well you can read those words. It's not really important that you can see them clearly. The point is, all of us are compartmentalized, and we found this out as we can scan the brain live now. We know what's happening because we are doing things while the brain's being scanned. And so we have all these specific areas that the brain's doing things. And that's important to know. And again, we learn by scanning. Hopefully, if we scanned all of our brains, we wouldn't have a scan that looked like this. Now I show you this picture because I want you to see this slide next. This is a caricature of a neuron. Now we have a lot of neurons in our brain. The estimate I've seen most recently is 85 billion. And different kinds of them, they all look sort of like this. They have an axon, a nucleus at the top, and then they have this long axon, kind of like a wire, going down to other terminals at the bottom there. And those terminals are close to, but not touching, the dendrites up near the nucleus. And so inside this axon, inside the cell itself, there's electrical impulses firing. And then between the spaces between the terminals and the dendrites, the axons and the dendrites, there's space there. They call it the synapse. And my guess is you've heard about this in your science classes in the past. Across the synapse, we're squirting chemicals, essentially. That's how we have one cell talking to another. Now, that 15%, that's how much mass the neurons take up in our brain, only 15%. So that begs the question, of course, what else is up there? Got to be a lot of other stuff. Well, here's an electron microscope of the brain itself. Bottom there, you see a nucleus of a neuron, and then some strings going off. Those are the axons. Except this is really not a good example of how connected the brain is. You have to go to this slide, another actual neuron, and they've removed everything else that's not the neurons. And so then you see now these stringy lines coming off. Those are the axons, and all those little spikes are potential connections to another neuron, so up to 100,000 per neuron. And back to this slide, all that dark stuff is what they call glial cells. That's like scaffolding for the brain. It's housekeeping to clean up after all those chemicals have been squirting around and stuff that we don't even know yet. We're still trying to figure it out. But this, folks, this is how our brain functions. It's a physical organ, chemicals that are made by our body. And, we have to remember this when we think about the things that are coming up next. This makes, stuff coming next makes way more sense when we remember this. It's a physical organ affected by the environment. Okay, wiring. This phrase came up the most often. It's one of the most important things to remember. The brain wires based on experience. A couple of ways of saying that. Passing mental states become lasting neural traits. Now that's a kind of a scientific way of saying the simplest thing is to say what the brain does a lot of, it gets good at. Now, here's a slide to show what we mean by that. Up at the top picture and the bottom picture, you see some dramatic differences. 2005, 2013. Both a picture of the same exact event. It's the introduction of the new pope, 2005, 2013. But notice in 2005, way in the bottom right-hand corner of that 2005 picture, you see one cell phone. 2013, everybody's got them. Pads, computers, whatever. They're taking pictures. That's the difference in 8 years in terms of the invasion, so to speak, of the phones in our lives. And it was really started before that. But so we're now wired for electronics. We're wired for visuals. And that's a whole thing we could do a whole presentation on. But it's important to think about. Now, I want you to, this is a little short video. I want you to guess, it's a 30-second video, no words till the last 10 seconds. I want you to try to guess what's being advertised. So let me just start the video and you see if you can guess what they're trying to advertise.
Weight loss, it's one of the many ways to fight osteoarthritis pain. For more information on managing pain, go to fightarthritispain.org.
Okay, so what are they selling? They're selling movement. I don't know if you caught the words there at the end. Osteoarthritis pain, we tend to think chemicals for that, pharmacy. And turns out, and this public service announcement is accurate, movement is the best way to reduce that. Movement and, what I said, weight loss. This is a public service announcement that hardly anybody's seen. I check it in all the workshops I do. I've only seen it actually live on an actual TV channel once in many years, in large part because nobody makes a lot of money off of people moving more. But I'm guessing almost every one of us has seen multiple, maybe scores, in fact, of the Cialis commercials because people make money off of that thing. Now, this slide about prescription for use. Use regularly to fight arthritis pain. And again, we typically would have thought oh, you got to get a prescription from your doctor. Well, in the end, our body, when we exercise, makes the chemicals that our joints need for lubrication. And so we're thinking about exercise now in a very real sense. This is perhaps the best example I've seen, it's a video coming up here, of the dramatic impact of exercise on brain function and on our life in general. It's like a 2020 version, 60 minutes version in Canada of those two shows. And it's about a 50-minute long, I think I've cut it down to 9 minutes, 50-minute long segment that talks about City Park Collegiate High School. It's an alternative high school. If you know what that means, alternative high schools are typically schools of last resort. It's the place that the kids are sent that can't function in the regular setting, and they give them the best shot in these alternative high schools that they can up in Saskatoon, Canada. And this is the kid's name, Destin Mesner, that is the sort of the main character in this segment. And Destin has what's called ODD. Now, I didn't even know what that was. ODD, Oppositional Defiance Disorder. We have a lot of alphabet soup to describe kids, and this is one of them. And basically, his operative word all day long in school was no. Actually, no, followed by a lot of expletives. He swore all day long. He'll admit it himself in the video. And he was as big as anybody in the school, bigger even than any of the faculty. So, how do you, if you're his teacher, good luck with Destin all day long. And so his teacher, a young teacher, came across a book entitled Spark. I'll show that book later on. It connected it connected exercise and brain function in a variety of ways. So she read the book, asked her principal, hey, can I put exercise equipment in my math class and see if it works for these kids? And because Destin wasn't the only issue. She had a class full of them. So the principal said, look, nothing else is working with these kids. Give it a shot. So she found a way to get X number, I don't know how many she had in her class. It wasn't a large class. Doesn't have to be a large class with students like this. And every kid had a treadmill, so they could all get on at the same time. And she did not add time to her class. She subtracted time from her class for exercise, 20 minutes every day. And let's let the video talk for itself. Here's Destin and the teacher and others talking about this issue.
That's kind of one of the reasons why I was put into an alternative school, is because I swore in class, and I used to not really like anyone at all.
But Cameron could see enormous potential in her students. The question was how to get at it. She thought there could be an answer in a book entitled Spark by Harvard University psychiatrist John Ratey. Spark examines how exercise affects the brain.
It promotes a process what we call neurogenesis, or growing new brain cells. There's nothing that we know of that does that better than exercise.
It doesn't only help brain cells grow, says Dr. Ratey, it also affects behavior.
People are sharper, they're more attentive, they're less impulsive, they're less fidgety, they can sustain their attention longer, and it promotes their ability to sort through information and take it in.
Ratey's best example is Naperville Central High near Chicago, which today has one of the best academic records of any secondary school in the U.S. and one of the lowest obesity rates in the country. 18 years ago, the school developed a fitness program where every student did vigorous aerobic exercise every day for 45 minutes. It was the first program of its kind in the U.S., one that also has an innovative combination of movement and classroom learning. And when the school entered an international competition in math and science, where Americans usually place 11th or 12th, Naperville came out on top. Excited by Naperville, Allison Cameron went to her principal and asked if she could move exercise equipment into her classroom. Carrie Alcorn was easily convinced. What was tougher was convincing the kids to use it.
It was defiance all around. Most of them initially thought that this was really hokey, Why would I get on a treadmill?
Well, I said, no, doesn't do anything. No, it's bull, pure bull.
That was then. This is now. Monday morning math class, where the first thing grade 9 students do is strap on a heart monitor. For 20 minutes, the kids work out on exercise equipment right in the classroom. After what is for some a grueling start to the day, it's time for the second half of math class. And this is when you notice that something very different is going on.
Simple subtraction like that.
They're concentrating and working hard. Nobody's swearing or running around, when before, some students could barely sit still for 10 or 15 minutes.
I had improved attention for 3 hours. Students were getting off of Ritalin. Students were coming to school every day just so they could use the treadmills.
When you raise the heart rate, what you do is you turn on a part of the brain that might be a little bit sleepy. That is the front part of the brain that is involved in controlling impulses. And this is the major effect that one sees with kids that have trouble managing their behavior in class. Speaking out too much, acting out, being too fidgety, not being able to sit still.
There's a growing body of science now about the different ways exercise affects the brain. This part, the hippocampus, is like central station for learning and memory. Sustained, vigorous exercise causes the release of nerve growth factors, especially one called BDNF, which acts like a fertilizer on this and other areas of the brain.
We make so many good things like this miracle grow for the brain, for instance, when our brain cells are clicking away. So it bathes the brain, if you will, in this nice fertilizer which helps preserve the nerve cells, make them stronger, helps them withstand stress, and makes them more pliable.
It isn't just any kind of exercise that sharpens your brain function. The key is sustained aerobic movement. Scientists are still trying to discover the exact formula for different ages, but here's what they think is best for high school students. Get the heart rate up to between 65 and 75% of its maximum, and keep it there for at least 20 minutes. That's what makes this program so different from a regular gym class.
Destin and I have a really good relationship now, and I don't know that we necessarily would have without that. He really put a lot in this. For him, it was really out of his comfort zone.
Yeah, kind of changed.
What changed your mind?
Well, I felt more energized, for one. I felt a little bit happy-ish.
The biggest turnaround was in Destin's mood. He was able to control his anger and to concentrate more. But academically, he also showed remarkable progress. His reading went up by 25%, math 25%, and comprehension by 30%. At school and at home, kids are moving less and less.
Our brains are geared for us to move, and if we don't, we get into the kind of trouble that we're in today. Lack of resilience, the obesity crisis, to be sure, and actually not using our brains to the maximum.
Joan Leishman, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Okay, so I like this video for a number of reasons. In fact, I love this video. I have yet to find anything more powerful to describe the difference that exercise makes. And I think about Destin. Now, we remember what he said with a sheepish grin at the end. What changed? He said, well, I felt happy-ish. That's what we remember. And that, by the way, that's not in the vocabulary of a student that has ODD. It certainly wasn't in Destin's prior to this. But what he said just before that is critical. I felt more energized. And we have kind of a counterintuitive view of things. We think, and I've had family members who say this, you know, I'm tired if I exercise, I'll just get worse. But the truth is, now, all things being equal, we have to have eaten well, be eating well, and be resting well. But when we exercise, we in fact add energy to our lives instead of reducing energy. It's hard science backing this thing up. There's lots and lots of evidence that keeps coming out. This is, in fact, 10 years old by now, and it's still around and being backed up by new evidence, piling on top, piling on top. It's firm in the evidence, scientifically. And I don't know how this teacher did it with Destin, but somehow she loved this kid on the treadmill, and then the treadmill literally changed his life academically and emotionally and behaviorally. So very powerful stuff. Now here's the book. You can see the book on the screen. I've got a copy of the book. It's online. You can check it out. But here's the chapters in the book. Chapter 1 is on schools, the ones you've seen here, and others. Chapter 2 is very layman-friendly look at the biology of it, the exercise in the brain, what happens in the brain when you exercise. But if you don't like that biology stuff, ignore that, because take a look at the rest of the chapters. Stress, anxiety, depression, attention deficit, menopause, hormonal issues, or aging. All of them dramatically affected for the good simply by adding in exercise. Now, this is maybe the most important picture I show you. This is Chuck Hillman out of University of Illinois, did some studies with students, and he, again, live scanning. This is live scanning of some junior high students while they're taking tests. Now, they're not academic tests. They're like an SAT, challenge the brain thinking kind of test. And think weather map. Left picture is a mist of brain activity. Right picture is a thunderstorm of brain activity. And so on the left side is a composite scan of those students, multiple students, while they're taking a test, but they've been sitting quietly for 20 minutes prior to that test. Same exact students on the right side, same exact kind of test later in the semester. The only difference is walk for 20 minutes and then take the test, and you can see. So if you're a parent, which brain would you rather have in your kid in the classroom? If you're a teacher facing students, which brain would you rather have in the students you're facing? If you're in a cubicle of any kind and you sit a long time during the course of a day, folks, you're the guy or the gal on the left and not on the right unless you move during the course of that day. Now, we might think, well, I'd love to have some kind of a gauge, an energy gauge. How much energy do people have, or do I have? Well, the truth is, well, I'll get to that in a second. We also think it's like the right side is the motor. And we say, well, you know, I can run the thing at full tilt, and then, well, I can go full tilt till the fuel runs out, and then I got nothing. But the brain is more like the flashlight. Put new batteries in, turn the flashlight on, and as the batteries dim, so does the brain function. The light bulb dims. So that's more like it. So now, back to this. I kind of got these in the wrong order. So we wish we had a gauge. Well, there is a gauge, and the fact the gauge is the clock on the wall. Count 20 minutes. And it doesn't matter who you are, what age you are, if you've been sitting for that 20 minutes, your brain is not functioning as well as if you had at least some movement in the course of that time. And then we can talk about brain breaks, because you obviously have to work, have to sit and do the work, but there's things you can do that are brain breaks. So we're going to talk about that now. I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to stand up just real quickly. There's a school. I went to the school in the video, Naperville Central High School. Shake your hands out a little bit, just get some muscle movement going. And I checked, and they do brain breaks. 95% of the classrooms do. And they do them because they've learned over time that these help the brain. When you can't be walking all the time, this helps the brain reset, get the blood flowing, it's oxygen to the brain, etc., nutrients to the brain. And then the cross-lateral, you saw them doing some cross-laterals. They're punching with hands, a variety of things. The cross-lateral is a way that gets the hemispheres talking to one another. That's a whole subject for another conversation, another workshop on attention, etc. But they've learned 20 minutes or so, take a break, get up to something, and they're never more than 2 minutes long. That's all it takes to really re-engage the brain. As long as over the course of the day, you've had some good movement overall, like these kids had in 20 minutes in Saskatoon, and you saw in the video 45 minutes at Naperville. It does take some daily action and movement, and then these brain breaks can help reset. Now, chemistry. We talked about in the synapses, chemistry, chemicals are spewing back and forth, one side talking to the other. Here's 3 chemicals that we may have heard of, serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. Now, there's many other chemicals. Scientists have learned one of the reasons exercise is so critical is that the body only makes these chemicals that our brain needs when our muscles are moving at some speed. So no muscle movement over the course of a day, no chemicals being made, and our brain does not function as well without a good supply of those chemicals. So Learning Readiness PE is the web page that Naperville Central High School has. I have also had people say to me, oh man, now I got to become an athlete. I'm not an athlete. Well, the truth is you don't have to become an athlete. You just have to move. Wall Street Journal from 2010 said the biggest bang for your buck, and you can see 2010, it's 10 years ago already. Biggest bang for your buck comes from going from nothing, translate that couch potato, to moderate activity, translate that walk like you're late. That's the way I term it. And that's what I do. That's my exercise, walking like I'm late. Here's something most of us don't know, maximum heart rate. We have no clue if we're not athletes. Again, this is something athletes might know. 220, subtract your age, that's your maximum heart rate. And by the way, nobody typically gets to their maximum heart rate ever. If you do, it's very short bursts. What this does is it gives you, and by the way, 220 minus your age, that means as you age, that your maximum heart rate gets lower. Now, the video said 65 to 70% of your max to get the chemicals going. That's what you need. When I walk like I'm late, I can easily get to that 65 to 70% of my max simply by that kind of walking like I'm late. And if you'd have said to me, well, 10 years ago, before I started doing any of this thing, maybe 15 years now, if you'd have said, Mark, why don't you just do a 5K every time you exercise, every day? And I'm going, 5K, what? Craziness. Well, here's the deal. I checked it out. I was at a workshop where the pastor was heavy into running, and at the workshop, he set up a 5K, a professionally timed 5K. I said, well, I'm going to test this out. So I did my walking like I'm late the whole time, 41 minutes, 11 seconds to go 3 miles. 5K is 3 miles. So it's totally doable. And I just encourage you to consider moving more. You'll be surprised at what you can do that you didn't think you can once you start. Now, important also, exercise and stress. John Rady mentioned stress. Cortisol is a stress hormone from the adrenal glands. We need it. When stress happens, we're supposed to have these things happen in our body. We're supposed to increase blood pressure, increase blood sugar, and depress the immune system because we want to deal with that stress immediately, and then this is supposed to go down. Well, the trouble is when we live in a stress-filled world, it doesn't go down, or we're junkies to cortisol because, by the way, cortisol is the most addictive substance known to humankind. We make it ourselves. My wife accuses me of being a cortisol junkie. If things are going finally settling down, what do? I find ways to boost stress because I want the cortisol. And here's what is happening to our heart when cortisol is cranking. Again, short bursts, it's there for a purpose. Long bursts or long term, it's not doing us any favors because it's really damaging the heart. And stress is a very strong cause for lots of chronic disease. So we have to ask a reality check. What's it like in your place, your home, your school, your work, or whatever in terms of stress? Is busyness a badge of honor? Or is there just unreasonable expectations or maybe some combination of both? We just have to get stress under control. And then older adults and Alzheimer's, fascinating books. Myth of Alzheimer's, it's a title that's trying to get your goat, trying to get you to pay attention. Dr. Whitehouse is in fact a medical doctor who has Alzheimer's patients. He's not saying there isn't Alzheimer's, he just wants you to read the book. And in the book, he says there's 3 things. Same thing that the other book says, by the way, anti-Alzheimer's prescription. We hear prescription, we think, oh, he's going to have some kind of a pharmaceutical drug. No, the prescription is exercise, diet, the one we'll talk about tomorrow, and I talk about play. He talks about exercise, diet, and brain stimulation in a social setting. Peter Whitehouse agrees with that as well, and they both say find a doctor who agrees with 1, 2, and 3, exercise, diet, and brain stimulation in a social setting. Too many doctors are, we've had experience with my mother-in-law. They went into the office and doctor's office and said, I think we're having some memory issues. Boy, they whipped out the prescription pad and wrote for Aricept right away without really any testing. That's not good. So exercise affects Alzheimer's in a positive way. We want to find treatments and cures, yes, but there's ways of pushing that off as well. Now, here's an example of a small school. Schools I showed you, actually not a small school, it's a larger school, but a small start. The schools I showed you had a very dramatic use of this. Naperville, every kid in the school. The Saskatoon school, hey, they had every day of the school year for these kids in class. Well, Putney is a school in Vermont. You can look this up on YouTube. Independent coeducational boarding and day high school. And this video I'm going to show you is shown by one of the students, and the mother the student needed to have medication for ADD. It was Adderall. Did not want to do that if they could avoid it. They tried it and didn't like it. Made her kind of very uncomfortable and didn't like the whole concept of that. It's a very strong drug to start with. If you don't know that, it is. And so she heard, the mother heard about this book and went to the principal and said, can we do a before and after school thing? Well, here's what they did in that school.
It's 7 o'clock on a foggy January morning, and even the sun doesn't seem to want to get up. But the lights are on in the field house, and Michael Chevalier is leading students and faculty in an exercise class based on Dr. John Rady's book, Spark, The Revolutionary New Science of Exercise and the Brain.
Again, free and easy, it's recovery time here. You can stop, you go right back into your jump rope. So one of the students' parents read this book acknowledging how medications can work in lieu, exercise can work in lieu of medications to work with conditions such as ADD, which is the focus of this group, but it also works across the board for depression, anxiety, stress, and such. And I've always been a believer in that, and I feel so strongly about it that I really wanted to jump on board and sort of practice what I preach to, in front of the other people. We bring it to them so that way they can try it and see what they think, and try to experience how their life can change through just moving their body. Dribbling basketballs with their weak hand versus their strong hand. Then we're going back and forth between the weak hand and the strong hand. Then we're having them jump over a small obstacle, a short obstacle that's non-threatening. But as they start to fatigue, the focus has to pick up as a consequence. In my mind, primarily, it's non-competitive. It's nothing is really judged around here, which is great. Whether it's on the athletic field or not. But in here, I really want these people to try things that they're not necessarily good at, and really just work at that without feeling this sort of outside pressure that they're supposed to succeed and be good at it or whatever. The goal is to have them just dial into a new way of thinking and making this more of an experience. The morning group really sort of sets the stage for the whole thing. The morning group really does a lot more of this kind of thing. Having them do things that are way outside their comfort zone. The nighttime group is sort of to reset, or just sort of refill your coffee cup, or whatever you want to call it. It's just finishing it all off.
I was on the ADHD meds before this, and I went off of them. And this is basically replacing my meds, and it's doing an amazing job of replacing it. And it's almost like doing the positive things that my Adderall did, minus the feeling sick all the time, or just socially weird, the things that go along with ADHD medication.
I guess when I leave every day, I really feel like my day has begun.
It's basically it's hard to get up, but it's so worth it.
Okay, interesting to watch. There was an administrator there and a teacher there, but mostly kids. But small group. You saw the size of the gym. It's not a small school, but they started with what they had, and hopefully it grew from there. And you saw they worked really hard, and a lot of cross laterals, weak hand, strong hand kind of thing. All those were very helpful. And as you saw from that testimony, the girl that started it replaced her meds with this. Now that's true for everybody, but certainly makes a possibility. So the social distance world that we're living in still is important and still possible on your own with others in terms of exercise. So this was a thing I found on the web recently. So keep your distance, but do exercise. Can't go to the gym, gyms are closed. Hey, find your own way to do it. The neighborhood got together and did their thing. And the woman in the left side of the screen has to still get on board unless she's done it another time of the day. But the point is get it and get going. Fill in recess, schools. How many recess time slots? Now we're not in school these days, but how many recess time slots typically? We're lucky to get lunch and then one slot in the morning, one slot in the afternoon, if that in some of schools. Well, Finland has a 50-minute break every 45 minutes of the day. So if they're for 5 hours, they got 5 breaks. And they found that it makes a dramatic difference positively for academic function. They even experiment with that by trying to reduce those. As you know, American educators went over and said, well, that's a waste of time. And so they pulled back and they found that the students did worse when they had less recess. So same thing as doing exercise in class. So here's an interesting thing about movement again, vision versus eyesight. Eye tracking problems often look like it's ADHD. And things are going on in the brain, and it's very simple to diagnose. What you have to do is you have to take, look at the video, take a pen or something and come in towards your eyes and ask the person to keep looking at that and have to cross their eyes. If one of the eyes wonks out, then that's a sign that they're not wired well, and there's something off in how the brain is moving the eyes. Lots of kids have it, and what they find is, how do you fix that? Movement, spinning, jumping, hanging, twisting. Very, very interesting that the wiring of the brain is affected that dramatically by a lack of or enough movement, one or the other. Now, brain breaks. ABC for Fitness. It's a PDF. You can check that out. GoNoodle.com has a lot of online videos. There's ABE for adults. That's from David Katz. And then again, Learning Readiness PE. Brain breaks make a difference. Set a clock. I have to do it even though I teach about this stuff. I have to set a clock, and 20 minutes in I take a break, and it makes a difference when you keep moving. So questions. We'll see if there's questions out there. We're within our time frame here, 45 minutes. And the question is, now what? Well, for all of us, I'm guessing we have to move more, and we want to give your best. In order to give our best, we have to do the things our bodies are designed to do. We'll talk about diet and play tomorrow, but certainly exercise today is a part of that. We have to move. And then we can look in our community for opportunities. Schools, I find that schools do not know about this. And so just letting your school know about this, I hope more parents find out about it, because parents are influential in terms of how much movement the kids get outside of school. And not just kids, all of us, older adults on down to the youngest. We all benefit from moving more. Now, tomorrow at 9 a.m., I'm going to add food, nutrition, and performance behavior. We'll focus on that tomorrow at 9, and then we find out that what is missing is critical. Then the next day, Friday at 9, we're going to have play in the brain, play, rest, and sleep in the brain. So check that out. And then Saturday at 9, nutrition, focus on nutrition and the immune system, especially these days with COVID-19. Some good information there, and that'll be connected to our working with the company we've been with for about 28 years called Neolife. Now, weekly workshops. This is where to go if you want to have sign up for the other ones tomorrow and the next day, etc., or get other people to sign up. Realign2thedesign.com, RTD and Neolife Zoom. And then this is my email. If you got questions, something I didn't get at in the video here, we encourage you to send me an email. We're recording this. We'll have this up on our Facebook page, and feel free to do some watch parties. We'll be doing some of those, trying to get word out about this. Again, in this crazy time, we want to worry about people's health, certainly from COVID-19, but this is a good time to think about health in general, and these 3 things I'm talking about, not enough people know about, and they really do change people's lives. So check it out. I'm going to get back to stop sharing the screen and say a final hello and goodbye. Again, Mark Shep is my name. Email me if you have questions. sign up for the workshops tomorrow and the next day. It's Saturday. And tell us about it. We hope to get the word out, and it's very important information that people need to know. All right, thanks. Take care.